All right. Unfortunately, we had to crash out of that report because we are just getting in some visuals of the Prime Minister who is greeting the Indian diaspora in Russia. And we had also, in fact, played out some of the reactions. The Indians living in Russia extremely excited to meet with the Prime Minister, speak to him. And I can see some foreign nationals also greeting the Prime Minister. But those voices from the Indian diaspora was all about enthusiasm, excitement, and all of them hoping to greet the Prime Minister, catch a glimpse of the Prime Minister, speak to the Prime Minister, and of course click umpteen number of pictures of the Prime Minister. So a rousing welcome there for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is also likely to meet with his Chinese President Xi Jinping. He is expected to hold bilateral talks and meets with other BRIC leaders as well. And Siddhant is with us. Siddhant, so we are seeing the visuals there of the Prime Minister receiving a beautiful reception from the Indian diaspora, a rousing welcome. And we also played out the voices of some of the excited Indians living in Russia. We have a sizable Indians living in Russia as well. A lot of students also who are studying in Moscow. So just take us through these visuals just before the Prime Minister starts those important bilateral talks with other BRIC leaders.
You know, Pravasi Bharati, Indian diaspora is perhaps the cornerstone of Indian foreign policy, has been the cornerstone of Indian foreign policy in last 1 decade. And Prime Minister has established a very, very unique and an emotional connect with the diaspora, not just living in Russia, but all across the world. Now, since he is in Kazan, I'm sure that, you know, the people from the Indian diaspora, not only from Kazan, but the other places in Russia have traveled to Kazan to catch a glimpse of Prime Minister Modi the time he enters the hotel. And now the meet and greet is going on. It's the usual tradition whenever a Prime Minister travels abroad. Perhaps also establishes his connect and also the kind of faith that diaspora has on him and his leadership. Because I myself have covered Prime Minister many times during his foreign trips, and you know the kind of love, the emotion that flows in when Prime Minister arrives to meet the diaspora, the chants of Bharat Mata Ki Jai, Vande Mataram, whenever Prime Minister meets them, clicking selfies, you know, hugging Prime Minister, handshakes. So that's a routine tradition. As far as Kazan is concerned, Kazan is also one of the cultural epicenter of Russian civilization. It is known for the Muslim population, and also, you know, there are 1,000 students in Kazan, Indian students in Kazan. Perhaps they have also come in large numbers to catch the glimpse of Prime Minister Modi. In fact, last time around when Prime Minister was in Moscow in July on the state visit, at that time, since he had time, he made sure he did one diaspora event for the diaspora in Russia, and that was a great event, a huge success that was. This time around, since his visit is action-packed, so it looks very less likely that he's going to hold a dedicated event for the diaspora. But whatever little time he has, he makes sure that he uses maximum of it to meet his people, Indian people in Russia, those who have been contributing to the Russian economy and are perhaps the bridge between India and Russia. And you know, this is a name that Prime Minister has given to the diaspora community, that they are the real ambassadors, brand ambassadors of India. Ye Bharat ke Rajdoot hain. I remember him saying this in Moscow last time when he was in July. Ye Bharat ke Rajdoot hain. So that is how Prime Minister and his government looks at the Indian diaspora.
No, and do you remember his historic visit to Kiev, the first ever by an Indian leader to visit Ukraine ever since 1991? I remember at that time also you yourself, Siddhant, had spoken to so many Indians who had traveled from different countries to arrive in Ukraine only to catch a glimpse of the Prime Minister. Such is the enthusiasm and excitement, and that is absolutely laudable. That also goes on to show the popularity and charisma of the Prime Minister as well.
Well, absolutely. Right now, Prime Minister is at the hotel lobby, and in fact, there are some performances that have been planned by the Indian community on his arrival. So that's again the gesture of the Indian community to thank Prime Minister for his contribution. And also, Avantika, there is also a sense of security. You know, if you talk to the Indian diaspora outside, they said they feel secure when Prime Minister Modi is there in India, because whenever they will be in trouble, Prime Minister would evacuate them, will help them. And we have seen that, you know, what happened during the evacuations during the Russia-Ukraine war, the mass evacuations that India undertook, then in Sudan, then in various other countries, Yemen, in Modi government have been focusing on this, and this builds confidence within the diaspora. I still remember when he visited Ukraine, because in Ukraine the situation is quite different, because the Ukrainian population look at the Indian people with somebody who comes from a country which sides with Russia. But when Prime Minister Modi went there, it was a game changer for the Indians living in Ukraine. And in fact, Indians told Prime Minister Modi कि अब आप कि इस मसले का जल्दी से हल निकालिए. And I remember Prime Minister Modi telling the Indian community, अब मैं आ गया हूँ, सब ठीक कर दूंगा. So that is a connect. As some elderly person comes to help them, he will, and that is perhaps because of the track record, as Prime Minister says, Modi ki guarantee. So that guarantee doesn't only work in India but also works abroad.
No, absolutely. Those words of comfort are not just reassuring for the Indian diaspora, but are also a source of strength for just so many Indians living abroad. And as you can see there, we are showing you the live visuals of the reception that the Prime Minister of India is receiving. The Indian diaspora in Russia, in particular, extremely excited as they greet the Prime Minister and welcome his presence in Kazan. We are slipping into a short break with these visuals. On the other side, the news and updates continue with my colleague Kritsween. Keep watching.
For more news and updates, all you need to do is follow CNBC TV 18 on all of our digital platforms.